Good afternoon. The purpose of this brief presentation is to show the Escape Notes tool, as Harry mentioned. So I want to go through a couple stages here. First, really, is to understand the key motivation for getting off Lotus Notes, and I think each organization probably ought to look at this first, because this will change certainly the order and the size of the phases that will be taken to get off Lotus Notes. Clearly, the main reason for actually a survey was just done recently, saying that 60% of 66% of all users felt that the Lotus Notes application were very important for their daily work, and the same group of people indicated that 50% of those wanted to get off Lotus Notes as soon as possible, within 6 months. So that indicates that there's certainly a drive and interest in doing so. And the reason that many companies haven't done so for many years, we've had discussion with companies for 5, 6, 7 years that really haven't moved off Lotus Notes, is probably because there has been a solution to go to. The solutions have been partial, and when we as a company discovered Force.com 3 years ago, we'll show you a lot more of that, we finally saw that there is enough similarity in the architecture as well as the intent of Lotus Notes to make it a feasible platform to migrate Notes apps to. What the demo just showed you a few minutes ago is some of the concept that simply never existed in Lotus Notes. Reporting, for instance, visual workflow would be another one. Those are some of the things that Notes user wished they could have done, just never managed to do. And that means that there is something to look forward to in the migration. We're not looking about recreating the same application with the same functionality, because really in most organizations there's not much of an appetite for investing resources to do, well, what basically would be the same thing. The Force platform provides the ability to capture what exists in the Lotus Notes apps, but of course build upon that, and that's really where the value can be found. So just a couple points here. One of the issues with Lotus Notes apps is there's very rarely documentation, meaning that there's quite a bit of risk here when applications are heavily used by potentially quite a large number of users, and there's just not any kind of documentation for that. Silos of information, I think this is probably one of the most common problems. People have used Notes to its full extent, meaning that they've made many copies of designs and are duplicating the effort in maintaining those somewhat similar designs, and are not able to share information, therefore, or share or leverage design across multitude application. Case in point here is mobile. To make an application mobile, you have to make a lot of application mobiles in the Notes world, and it's pretty hard to do. So what we're talking about is a process where one first has to assess. Then you have to create a roadmap, and then you decide what to migrate of those applications. The Escape Notes process is pretty classic, I guess, in that during the phase of assessment, we're going to find out how many databases you have. Some organizations have a pretty clear idea of that. Some have really no idea. It could be a few thousand, or it could be a few tens of thousands, or it could just be a few hundreds. More importantly, we find out of those applications which one access is prohibited. Many applications live in organizations where even the administrators don't have access to them. What we do is we extract every design element. That's what's pretty unique to us. We'll really look at every line of code, every design element of every database, and compile all this into a central database. We call that the Notespedia. And we can then compute a complexity index that I'll talk about in a minute. The complexity index is a quantitative index, not a qualitative index, meaning that it's a point-based system like the financial scores used in the US for credit ratings. We certainly will flag compatibility issues, and I'll show you that, which is things that could present problems when migrated to Force. Obviously, not every concept in Lotus Notes exists in Force, and therefore some have to be worked around. We of course look at usage. Applications which are unused don't have a tremendous amount of value to the organization. We could then this roadmap. This roadmap is really, again, defining a first phase, a manageable first phase. It's trying to handle the whole thing in one shot is a bad idea. And then finally, those applications that have been identified as worthwhile migrating in that first phase, we have a tool that automates the time-intensive parts of the migration, which is the data and schema. And of course, I'll show you that. So who are we? I personally shared an office with Ray Ozzie in Boston when Notes didn't even have a name, pre-version 1.0. And my team over the years has grown from a lot of Lotus Notes ex-engineers to form a core group of people that have well, 22 years of Notes experience, 23, I think, to be precise. We've built an engine 11 years ago to actually analyze those large quantities of Lotus Notes databases out there. We've only started building a migration engine 3 years ago when we discovered that there was a target for Notes apps where the percentage automation was high enough to justify building an engine. And as you know, Ray Ozzie went to Microsoft. Several of the Lotus people went to other organizations. We tried several times to build a migration engine. We tried and got paid to try to build it for WebSphere, SharePoint, as well as Oracle. And in all three cases, we gave it up. It was just not possible to automate a large enough number of features to make a worthwhile product. It's only the first time that we've done a migration engine to Force.com, and I think I probably says quite a bit of it. We've processed over 1 million Notes databases since 1999. That gives us a pretty good statistical base. Also gives you a pretty good idea of what works and what doesn't work. We operate in the enterprise world, where people have hundreds, thousands, if not tens of thousands of databases. So, as I mentioned, we look at every Notes design element. We only look at metadata. We don't look at data. We compute a complexity score. Complexity score is a weighted average multi-criteria score, where, for instance, if a form contains a field and a field contains a formula, then that field costs more than a field that doesn't contain a formula. If a field contains a special form of Lotus Notes security, such as a reader's author field's property, then in this case, the field also costs even more. And you aggregate those hundreds of criteria with a set of weights that, by the way, are exposed. You have the ability to critique those weights or change them if you want to. It gives us a pretty good idea of what it will take to migrate such an application. Now, the goal of the score is to be linear, meaning that if an application has 600 points and one has 1,200 points, then it's going to be twice the difficulty. And the complexity score is biased. It's not an exercise in style. It's an exercise where we're trying to figure out what it will take to migrate that application to the other platform.